A wealthy obstetrician assists a woman in labor on the street as she faces her final moments. Affection emerges with the initial wail of the newborn. The night was painfully frigid, the sort of chill that penetrated gloves and cut deep into the marrow. In the heart of the city, vehicles stood still, their headlights glimmering on the wet pavement like blurred constellations. In the dim embrace of the overpass, the atmosphere thickened, a hush settling in, interrupted only by the sporadic honk or the low murmur of engines simmering in their own impatience. Evan Hale sat behind the wheel of his sleek black SUV, observing the way his breath misted the windshield. The city was engulfed in a chilling grip of ice, and the snowflakes falling from the sky had lost their charm. They were harsh, piercing reminders of a winter that stubbornly clung to its hold. He had just departed from a medical conference uptown, where he had served as the keynote speaker, lauded for his surgical precision, his innovative ideas, and his reputation as one of the nation's youngest and wealthiest obstetricians. Yet, in that instant, everything else faded away. All he desired was to return home. The phone vibrated softly on the seat next to him. Yet another message of congratulations. He turned a blind eye to it. Weary and restless, he drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. Then a flicker at the edge of his sight compelled him to look. At the distant edge of the pavement, under the glow of the overpass lights, a silhouette huddled close to the guardrail. For a moment, he believed it was merely a heap of worn-out blankets. Then it shifted. Evan's instincts surged into action. He shifted the car into park, snatched his coat, and ventured into the biting cold of the night. The chill struck him hard, yet he pressed on undeterred. As he drew nearer, the silhouette sharpened into focus. A young woman, her posture bent, one arm wrapped around her rounded belly. Her breaths came in quick, shallow gasps, and her complexion was ghostly beneath the shadow of a baggy jacket's hood. She appeared to be in her mid-20s at most. "Excuse me?" Evan lowered himself into a crouch. "Are you able to hear me?" Her eyes snapped open, wide and brimming with fear. Her lips quivered, not merely from the chill, but from the ache within. "I am unable to." Stings, she breathed out. "I'm pleading for my child's life. Do not allow my child to perish in the cold." Her voice emerged as a fragile whisper, tinged with cracks of desperation. "Are you experiencing contractions?" he inquired, his tone laced with a sense of pressing need. "Is there no one else with you?" She offered a faint nod, a single tear tracing its way down her cheek. "I feel utterly alone." Evan felt his heart race. He swiftly took hold of his phone, calling emergency services with one hand, while the other was busy checking her pulse and breathing. "Greetings, I am Dr. Evan Hale. A woman is in active labor beneath the 9th Street overpass. She is experiencing hypothermia and is in a state of distress. An ambulance is urgently required right now." The dispatcher responded, "ETA 15 minutes. He muttered a curse softly to himself. 15 minutes felt like an eternity. He gazed down at the woman, who began to emit low, deep moans, reminiscent of the sounds women made when the grip of contractions enveloped them. "What's your name?" he inquired, as he unbuttoned his coat and draped it around her shoulders. "June," she murmured. "June, pay attention," he said, his tone steady yet resolute. "You and your little one will be all right, but we must act quickly. You need to perform exceptionally well in this moment." Her eyes grew large with surprise. "I simply cannot do that." "Absolutely you can," he stated. "I am a medical professional. I have brought hundreds of new lives into the world. Rest assured you can rely on me." She let out a soft whimper as another contraction surged through her. She seized his forearm with unexpected force. Evan carefully placed her on the coat, using his scarf to softly support her head. The earth was unforgiving and harsh, yet he refused to be deterred. He swiftly evaluated her vitals, donned gloves from his medical bag in the trunk, and readied himself as thoroughly as possible. "You're completely dilated," he stated. "It's time to give it your all, June. Leave no stone unturned." Her scream pierced the air, reverberating against the cold concrete and steel surroundings. "Excellent, precisely in that manner. You're excelling." The following minutes dragged on, stretching into what felt like hours. Evan led her through every wave of pain, his hands firm, voice soft and supportive. The urban landscape gradually dissolved into the background. Gone are the traffic jams and the chill. It's just a woman determined to usher new life into existence. In that moment, a faint sound broke through the stillness of the night. Evan raised the newborn high, his heart racing with emotion. A small girl, delicate, rosy, wriggling, full of life. He swiftly enveloped the baby in his shirt under the coat, pressing her close to June's chest to ensure she stayed warm. "She possesses an exquisite beauty," he murmured softly. June wept with relief, her arms shaking as she embraced her child tightly. The wail of sirens approached, yet Evan scarcely registered their presence. He was utterly absorbed in the delicate, wondrous tableau unfolding before him. Amidst the stark illumination of street lamps and the distant wail of an approaching ambulance, a child drew her first breath. In that moment, a profound change stirred within Evan's heart, subtle yet impactful, destined to last a lifetime. The wailing sirens intensified, crescendoing until the ambulance came to a sudden halt on the slick, icy pavement. Paramedics sprang into action, their motions smooth and exacting. A performance practiced endlessly, yet still filled with intensity. Evan remained nearby, carefully sweeping away the snow from June's disheveled hair as they tenderly placed her onto the stretcher. He settled into the back with her and the newborn, his grip on her hand unwavering. Her skin felt like frost beneath my fingers, her lips a ghostly white, and her breath was a series of quick, uneven hitches. "She's losing too much blood," he said to the emergency medical technician, his voice laced with a palpable sense of urgency. "Immediate attention is required for her. She needs fluids, oxygen, and close monitoring." The emergency medical technician acknowledged with a nod, swiftly getting to work. Evan carefully positioned the oxygen mask over June's face, his fingers brushing against hers in a tender gesture as her eyelids fluttered softly. "Please don't leave her," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "I won't," he murmured, drawing nearer.
"I assure you."
"She is secure. Both of you are." Amidst the tumult of flashing lights and the rhythmic beeping of monitors, the ambulance sped through the darkness of the night. Within those walls, Evan's reality had condensed to two delicate souls, one who had triumphed against the odds, and another who continued to battle. As he exited the vehicle at the hospital, a wave of recognition swept through the emergency room staff. Evan Hale transcended the role of a mere doctor. He embodied a legacy, a beacon of unparalleled excellence. The nurses swiftly cleared a path, and in mere moments, June was rolled into a treatment room. Evan placed the newborn into the care of the neonatal unit, his touch both tender and assured. She entered the world amidst frigid circumstances, with hypothermia posing a risk. Ensure she remains under the warmer and keep a close eye on her oxygen saturation levels. "Indeed, Dr. Hale," a nurse replied, cradling the baby with meticulous care. Evan remained standing. He oscillated between June's room and the neonatal unit, monitoring vitals, conferring with residents, and scrutinizing lab results. His white shirt hung wrinkled and damp from the storm, the tie loosened, hair tousled, yet no one had the courage to suggest he take a break. His focus held a certain intensity, an element that transcended mere medicine. 2 hours slipped away. The blood transfusion had brought her vitals back to a stable state, and the fluids had infused a hint of color into her cheek. As he re-entered her room, she leaned against a pillow, her breathing more relaxed, her gaze distant yet attentive. She pivoted her head with deliberate slowness upon catching sight of him. Her eyes, despite their weariness, retained the same cautious strength he'd observed on that rain-soaked sidewalk. "You remained," she whispered hoarsely. "I said I would," he replied, taking a seat next to her bed. His voice had mellowed, devoid of the commanding presence he wielded in surgical settings. At that moment, it was merely a man conversing with a woman who had occupied his thoughts incessantly. The air hung heavy with unvoiced feelings, creating a palpable stillness between them. Thank you, she murmured, her gaze fixed on her hands, for everything, but I will be departing shortly, as soon as I am able to walk. His brow furrowed, lines forming across his forehead. Departing? Is this the location? She remarked, her gaze drifting over the pristine walls and gentle illumination. It feels overly pristine, excessively secure. It's not meant for individuals like myself. June, you just brought a new life into the world beneath a highway, he said softly, studying her expression. You came perilously close to losing your life. Your child was in a life-threatening situation. I know, she said, her voice sharp and guarded. But I've endured worse. He examined her closely, taking in the shadows beneath her eyes, the invisible bruises, the weariness that seemed to permeate her very being. Where might one even venture? She paused, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Return to the park, or beneath the 5th Street Bridge. It's quite manageable if you can locate a dry area. You intended to nurture a newborn in such a manner? Her shoulders tightened. I have navigated life independently since I was 16. I don't fear it. You don't need to be, he said softly. That's no longer the case. There was no response from her. Her gaze darted to the clock, then to the baby bag on the floor, as if she were already plotting her departure. The following morning, Eben lingered outside her door, clutching a simple paper bag. Within, neatly folded garments, plush socks, compact toiletries for travel, and a bundle of diapers for a newborn. As June caught sight of him entering, she let out a deep sigh, preparing herself for what was to come. I told you, she said, arms crossed. I'm leaving soon. And I told you, he said, placing the bag down with care, you're not returning to the street. She squinted her eyes. What makes it important to you? He remained utterly still. Since no one else takes the initiative and since you are truly one of a kind. You are the fierce woman who brought life into the world amidst a tempest, cradling your daughter with the strength of a warrior. You persevered. That is significant. Her lip quivered, yet she remained composed. I have a place, he said, his tone becoming gentler. It's serene, secure. Behind my house stands an old greenhouse, abandoned and untouched by anyone. It's arid, cozy, secluded. You and your daughter are welcome to stay there for as long as you require. She appeared bewildered, lost in thought. What would motivate you to take that action on my behalf? It's not an act of charity, he stated with conviction. I'm not extending sympathy. I provide an environment, a chance to expand, to reflect, to become something greater than the labels the world assigns you. She blinked rapidly, her eyes filling with tears. And if I refuse, I'll still be haunted by thoughts of that little girl shivering in the cold. He took a moment to stop. Ultimately, the decision is yours to make. June fixed her gaze on him, holding it for what felt like an eternity. Finally, after a moment of hesitation and a subtle bite of her lip to suppress the quiver, she gave a slow nod. Only until I get my bearings. Evan smiled, a gentle warmth piercing through the cold detachment. Agreed. Later that day, as she eased into the passenger seat of his car, baby Lily cradled in her arms, the clouds finally parted. Sunlight poured onto the dashboard, and for the first time in what seemed like ages, June shut her eyes and allowed herself to bask in the warmth. Not merely from the heat, but from the company of someone who wasn't attempting to mend her, just ready to be there. The greenhouse transformed into a haven, embraced by the gentle warmth of heaters and the caress of soft sunlight. The space brimmed with cascading greenery, the aroma of soil wafting through the air, accompanied by the soft, melodic coos of baby Lily. June had maintained it in pristine condition, more spotless than any place she had visited in years. Each day, she awoke a little earlier, organizing, folding small garments, nurturing the seedlings that Evan had entrusted to her care. However, what genuinely ignited her passion was the time she dedicated to volunteering at the community clinic managed by Evan 3 days a week. After a bit of persuasion, June inquired softly one afternoon, "Do you believe I might be of assistance? Are you referring to the clinic?" Evan's expression shifted to one of surprise before he nodded in understanding. Are you looking to engage in some work? I wish to feel of value, she murmured softly. I may not possess formal degrees or specialized training, yet I excel at cleaning, organizing, and engaging with others. Having witnessed enough suffering, he understood how to be present with someone in their moments of hardship. He smiled. With such impressive credentials, she started arriving early, filled with enthusiasm. She assisted with the check-ins in the waiting room, brewed tea for anxious patients, and provided tissues to mothers clutching ultrasound images. All who encountered her recognized the warmth she carried within, even as she grappled with acknowledging it herself. As the sun sank low on the horizon one late afternoon, Evan wrapped up his paperwork in the office when his phone buzzed to life. Lily has a fever, June said, her voice trembling with panic. She's in distress, and I'm at a loss for how to help. I'm en route. He made his way directly to the destination. June encountered him at the greenhouse entrance, her bare feet touching the ground, her eyes filled with trepidation, and her hair a chaotic mess. Lily lay nestled in her embrace, her cheeks flushed and soft whimpers escaping her lips. Evan swiftly assumed control, assessing Lily's temperature, inspecting her ears, and observing her breathing. She has a significant fever, yet her lungs sound clear, and there's no rash present. It could be viral in nature. He carefully crushed a fever-reducing tablet, blended it into juice, and tenderly administered it to the baby. Next, he soaked towels in lukewarm water, aiming to soothe her elevated temperature. He moved with a calm assurance that spoke of a life dedicated to saving others. Yet in every gesture, there was a tenderness that transcended mere skill. June observed from the shadows, her arms clutched firmly around her body. As time went by and Lily's fever started to subside, Evan remained by her side, seated on the floor with her resting in his lap, murmuring gently and soothing her back until she finally fell asleep. You didn't have to stay, June whispered. He gazed at her, his voice barely above a whisper. Leaving was not my desire. She gazed at him, a weight pressing down on her heart. The words emerged gradually, the sort that you conceal for far too long. At 19, I encountered him, Gavin, believing he was my destiny. Upon discovering my pregnancy, he expressed that I was destroying his life. His parents compensated me to vanish. I found myself without a place to call home, resting in shelters, on buses, and beneath bridges. Her voice trembled. As the contractions began, I found myself solitary, seated on a bench. I considered that perhaps it would be best if neither of us succeeded. Evan's eyes deepened, not with sympathy, but with a smoldering fury for the world that had let her down. Yet you truly accomplished it, he remarked softly. You not only endured, but you also ensured Lily's survival each day, fueled solely by your determination. June brushed her tears away. At times, I find myself questioning my very existence. He gently stood, cradling the sleeping baby as he placed them in the crib. He then shifted his gaze towards her. Your presence here signifies your unwavering determination. It's beyond mere strength, June. That is elegance. She gazed at him, genuinely gazed at him, and in his eyes found no judgment, no savior fantasy, only acknowledgement. Acknowledgement of a spirit that has endured trials by fire, emerging with love unscathed. The sound began with a knock, precise and intentional, carrying a heaviness that caused June's body to tense up completely. Having just completed the tender act of nursing Lily, she cradled her gently, swaying softly in the serene embrace of the greenhouse, where the delicate aroma of soil and lavender wafted around them. Outside, snow flurries twirled gracefully against the frost-kissed glass. The world seemed still, as if a fleeting moment of tranquility had at last embraced them. Yet, suddenly, a voice emerged, deep and strange, brimming with confidence. June, are you there? She stood still, heart racing, as she quietly approached the window, gazing through the misty frost. Her breath hitched. 3 silhouettes lingered just beyond the garden path. One of them, tall and sharply dressed, bore the same arrogant smirk that had lingered in her dreams for years. Gavin. His coat exuded luxury, crafted from the finest cashmere, while his hair was impeccably slicked back, a signature style. With his hands casually tucked into his pockets, he carried an air of ownership over the very ground beneath him. On either side of him stood two others, an older gentleman clad in a finely tailored overcoat, and a woman with pursed lips, clutching a handbag that likely exceeded June's annual earnings, his parents. Her throat constricted. She instinctively positioned herself in front of Lily's crib, protecting it with her presence, then gradually stepped outside, gripping her jacket more firmly around her chest. The biting cold seeped through her delicate sleeves, yet it paled in comparison to the icy grip that coursed through her very bones. "What brings you here?" she inquired, her tone more assertive than her inner state suggested. Gavin's grin grew broader. "It's been a while, June." His mother surveyed the garden with evident contempt. "Is this truly the destination you've arrived at? A greenhouse nestled in another's backyard. How charming." June tightened her jaw. "What is it that you desire?" Gavin moved ahead, his hands tucked into his pockets, his stance easygoing as if he were simply dropping by for a friendly chat. "We stand by Lily," her eyes fluttered, the words settling heavily within her, like stones in her stomach. "Excuse me?" "She is my daughter," he stated. "I possess certain rights, and my parents and I are in consensus that she should not be raised in an environment like this. It's below her. She's not something you can just pick up again after tossing aside." June interjected sharply, positioning herself firmly between them and the exit. Gavin's father advanced a step. His voice carried a calm, practiced, authoritative tone. "You aren't in a marital union, lack a source of income, and possess no tangible assets. Until recently, you found yourself navigating life on the streets. Your current way of living is not suitable for raising a child, and we have already submitted a petition for custody." June recoiled, her fingers clutching the doorframe tightly. "This isn't something you can accomplish. He has departed from our midst. He left us before she had even come into the world." Gavin inclined his head thoughtfully. "Let's keep things straightforward. I presented you with an offer of financial support. You selected the challenging path. You proposed a quiet exit with money. And yet," his mother interjected, "you still found a way to ensnare a doctor into cleaning up your chaos. Astute young lady." June's complexion drained of color. "You have no understanding of who we are," the woman hissed, fully aware that our granddaughter deserves so much more. "That child embodies our heritage. She won't be brought up by some girl from the streets with a sob story to tell." Gavin moved in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "We have secured legal representation already. Your willingness to collaborate will be met with kindness. If that's not the case, then you understand how these situations unfold. There is an absence of anything. We possess it all. The legal system will consume you whole." June. Her sight became hazy. Lily's gentle breaths resonated from within, and in that moment, the chill faded away. She shut the door with a forceful finality, leaving no room for further conversation. Within, her knees buckled. She sank to the ground, holding Lily tightly to her heart, swaying gently in a rhythmic embrace. Thoughts surged through her mind. Dates for court proceedings, press, legal professionals, exposure to shame in a public setting. Farewell to Lily. Absolutely not. That night, she lay awake. The past surged forth with overwhelming force. Visuals of makeshift homes, public seating, frigid evenings accompanied by an expanding waistline and a sense of despair. At last, just when she had discovered a sense of stability and warmth, everything was being torn from her grasp. As dawn broke, she found clarity in her choice. She gathered only the most necessary items: diapers, formula, a cozy blanket, an extra outfit. She nestled Lily in a sling against her chest, cradling the little girl's head gently beneath her chin. Her cheeks glistened with the remnants of sorrow. As dawn broke, she quietly exited through the rear gate. Her feet raced with a sense of urgency. She would flee, just as she had before, and no one would discover her whereabouts. Neither Gavin, nor his wealth, nor his influence. Yet, just as she approached the alleyway, a voice pierced the mist. June twirled gracefully. "Evan." He stood in scrubs, his hair disheveled, his coat only partially fastened. The vehicle sat askew on the pavement, its hazard lights flashing in a desperate dance. His gaze swept over her completely, taking in the duffel, her puffy eyes, and the infant cradled in her arms. "Where are you going?" he asked, breathless. She cast her gaze downward. "I must take my leave now. They are going to take her away. I won't allow that to occur." "June," he murmured, moving in closer. "You believe that fleeing will ensure her protection. Once more, you'll find yourself isolated, famished, resting in bus terminals. I've experienced it in the past, and it nearly cost me my life. What options are available to me?" She broke. "Gavin is represented by legal counsel. He possesses wealth. They'll drown me in documents before I ever set foot in a courtroom. Not while I'm by your side." She stood still. "What would compel you to take that action? This doesn't concern you." Evan's voice took on a gentler tone. "The moment you entrusted me with Lily, believing I would safeguard her life, it became my responsibility. I'm here regardless of your wishes." June shook her head, tears flowing without restraint. "You fail to grasp the situation. I am unable to do that. I can't face this challenge by myself once more." Evan extended his hand, softly lifting the strap of the sling from her shoulder. "You are no longer by yourself." She gazed at him, her eyes filled with astonishment. A lifetime of anguish and dread etched into each look. In that moment, on a quiet back street shrouded in the gray of morning, with her daughter's heartbeat resonating against her own, there was something in his voice, in his unwavering presence, that compelled her to stop and reflect. That moment of stillness marked the beginning of a journey she had never allowed herself to dream of. Residence. The rain hammered down on the pavement, transforming the streetlights into hazy orbs that shimmered on the glossy asphalt. In the shadowy recesses of the city, a bus stop glimmered faintly, struggling against the relentless rain. There, June stood shivering, her arms wrapped tightly around a bundled Lily, the infant softly whimpering against the chill and her mother's trembling chest. June's hair dripped with moisture, her coat clung tightly to her skin, and her breath came in uneven gasps. The duffel bag resting at her feet drooped under the weight of wet clothes and formula, its zipper frayed and struggling to keep everything contained. Tears blended with the rain on her cheeks as she cradled Lily, murmuring, "I'm so sorry. I am making an effort." Amidst the tempest, headlights pierced the darkness as a sleek black SUV glided to a stop, its tires whispering against the wet pavement. The door burst open, and Evan emerged, his clothes rapidly drenched. He approached her directly, exuding confidence. "June," he exclaimed, his breath catching. "What brings you out here?" She glanced upward, taken aback, her complexion wan and distressed. "How could you just leave without a single word? I anticipated your destination." His gaze shifted to Lily, then returned to June. "You're feeling quite cold. Let's go." "I can't," she whispered. "They will take her. Returning is not an option for me. I refuse to allow them to triumph. You can choose not to concede to them." "I have nothing, Evan," she said, her voice trembling. "Without a lawyer, a house, or a name, everything feels stripped away. Which court would ever select me instead of them?" He removed his coat and softly draped it over her shoulders. He grasped her arms, a blend of strength and gentleness. "June, there's no need to run anymore," he said, his voice calm and unwavering. "You are not alone." She bit her lip, her eyes welling up once more. "Yet I feel inadequate for this battle." "Then allow me to confront it," he said, his voice transforming into a more personal tone, a choice anchored in the depths of his being. "Marry me," June blinked. "What is happening?" He insisted, "Marry me," with a sense of formality. "If you are my spouse and Lily is my legally recognized stepdaughter, no court would grant custody to them. I possess the authority, the trustworthiness, and the means to ensure your safety." She looked at him in disbelief, as though he had sprouted an entirely new head. "Evan, you must be joking." "I'm absolutely serious," he stated. "This is not a matter of charity. It's about safeguarding about providing Lily with a barrier that neither of us can create on our own. June shook her head, utterly bewildered. This isn't something you need to do for us. He stated that his actions were not driven by a sense of duty. I'm taking this step because you and Lily hold significance for me, more than I anticipated, more than I'm prepared to acknowledge. Her lips parted, yet silence lingered. She gazed at him, a myriad of inquiries trapped within her silence. The rain cascaded in rhythmic waves, yet neither of them stirred. You would actually do this? She inquired, her voice tinged with disbelief. I would, he said. Right now if you'll allow me to. June gazed down at Lily, her infant's cheek nestled against her collarbone, delicate fingers entwined in her damp sweater. Then she glanced back at Evan, the man who had brought her child into the world amidst a tempest, who had provided her solace when everything else seemed lost, and who now stood drenched in the rain, his hand reaching out toward eternity. Very well, she murmured. He offered no smile, merely a single resolute nod, as if he had just sworn an oath he intended to uphold until his last breath. In less than an hour, they found themselves at a courthouse annex open around the clock. The clerk on duty glanced up from her desk, taken aback as they walked in, their clothes still wet, a baby nestled between them. Evan stated plainly that we require a marriage license. This evening, documents were executed, and forms were submitted. June's hand trembled as she hastily wrote her name, and when the justice of the peace prompted them to share their vows, Evan gazed into her eyes and simply declared, I promise I will protect you, always. June struggled to find her voice, her lips quivering as she formed a response, and I vow I won't flee again. There were no rings, no music, no friends present, only the buzz of fluorescent lights, the heaviness of drenched clothes, and the gentle sound of Lily's breathing in her embrace. Yet as they emerged into the rain, now softer, now more serene, an undeniable shift had occurred. June Hale. The name resonated with an unfamiliarity, yet it belonged to her now, just as the man beside her did. They were no longer strangers, no longer two individuals from separate realms. At this moment, both in the eyes of the law and for the first time in their hearts, they had become a family. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, stretching shadows across the serene street by Lily's daycare. June had just picked her up, the little girl snug in her pink jacket, gripping her mother's hand as they strolled toward the corner. June hummed a lullaby gently, her smile warm as she gazed at her daughter's drowsy eyes. Yet, an unsettling shift in the atmosphere caught her attention, a chill that seemed to transcend the mere temperature outside. From across the street, a black SUV came to a sudden halt. The doors swung wide, and June felt her blood run cold. Gavin's mother emerged first, her heels striking the pavement with a sharp rhythm, her eyes ablaze with anger. Two imposing figures in dark coats trailed behind her, their faces betraying no emotion. Then came Gavin, his expression contorted into a smile that felt more like a mask, failing to illuminate the depths of his eyes. June stood still. No, this isn't the right place, nor the right time. Ah, June! Gavin's mother screamed, her voice piercing and filled with malice. You believed you could take my granddaughter and show her off as if she were a trophy? Lily's fingers curled around June's hand, a primal awareness of impending peril coursing through her. June retreated, her heart racing. Kindly give us some space. You filthy little parasite, the woman hissed, advancing with determination. You captivated that doctor and maneuvered your way into our lineage, but that child belongs to us. June pivoted, tugging Lily along, but one of the men seized her arm. She shouted, "Release me!" The other reached out for Lily, who started to cry loudly, stretching her arms toward her mother. In an instant, Gavin surged ahead, his eyes ablaze with intensity. "She is meant to be with us," he whispered fiercely. "Hand her over to me." "No," June cried, holding Lily tightly against her heart. Gavin surged forward, his fingers clutching the blanket that enveloped Lily. His mother cried out from behind him, "That child possesses pure blood. She deserves better than to be brought up in filth." The shrill cry of tires skidding cut through the tumult. A moment later, A swift motion darted between them. Evan. In an instant, with no words exchanged, he landed a punch directly on Gavin's jaw. The impact propelled Gavin backward, sending him tumbling to the pavement. The man who had seized June let her go, bewildered. Evan's gaze intensified as he positioned himself between June and the others, protecting her and Lily with his presence. Touch them once more, he snarled, his voice deep and trembling with fury. And I promise you, you won't walk out of here unscathed. You attacked him, Gavin's mother yelled. You tried to abduct a child in plain sight, Evan retorted, and you put your hands on my wife. The wail of sirens pierced the atmosphere. Flashing blue and red lights illuminated the scene as two police cruisers came to a halt at the curb. Officers sprang into action, weapons drawn, issuing commands with urgency. June remained motionless, with Lily weeping against her, until an officer softly guided her away. Excuse me, are you feeling okay? Did they cause harm to you or your child? Her words were almost lost. They attempted to seize her. They seized her. Another officer knelt beside Gavin, who was now handcuffed and groaning, as his parents shouted about lawsuits and lawyers. Yet, none of it held significance any longer, for justice, at last, made its timely entrance. All four were taken into custody immediately for attempted kidnapping, assault, and harassment. Evan delivered his statement with a composed clarity, infused with the intensity of a man who had come perilously close to witnessing his family being shattered. June was brought to the hospital for an examination of her bruises. Lily underwent an examination and was found to be physically unharmed. Both were deeply affected emotionally. On that fateful night, the news emerged. Footage captured by a bystander. The anguished cries of Gavin's mother filled with slurs. The chaotic scuffle, Evan's decisive punch, and the arrival of the police all spread rapidly online. Headlines erupted. Wealthy physician rescues spouse and infant from brazen assault. A group made an attempt to abduct a child. A father stands his ground. Evan Hale's courageous protection of his family touches hearts across the internet. Social media was flooded with encouragement. Justice for June and Dr. with a heart captured attention for several days. Individuals nationwide shared words of support and motivation. Contributions flowed generously for the Hale family's newly established foundation dedicated to supporting single mothers. And June's past had ceased to be a tool wielded against her. It transformed into her source of power. And regarding Evan, he had transcended the roles of merely being a doctor or a wealthy philanthropist. He was the one who faced the tempest and decided to battle not only with strength but with compassion. The garden behind the clinic was bursting with vibrant colors and life. Wildflowers danced gently in the tender breeze. White drapes danced gently from the wooden arch that graced the heart of the grassy courtyard. Paper lanterns adorned the fence, while laughter floated softly in the warm embrace of the late afternoon light. A year had passed since that rain-drenched evening when Evan had proposed to June, not out of love, but as a means of safeguarding her. However, on this day, their union held no legal obligation. Today marked a joyous occasion, a tribute to love that has emerged from strength, belief, and an indomitable spirit. June lingered behind a delicate curtain, adorned in a simple lace dress, her hair elegantly fastened with small white jasmine blooms. Her fingers quivered gently as she fixed the hem, yet her eyes shone with a serene happiness that extended well beyond the material of the dress. She gazed out the window and noticed the chairs being occupied by recognizable figures, nurses from the clinic, women from the shelter who had rediscovered their voices, and mothers like herself whom she now guided. The newly established Nest Center, a nonprofit she co-founded with Evan, had already assisted numerous women in breaking free from abuse, homelessness, and despair. The greenhouse that had once been her home had transformed into a cozy community lounge, brimming with books, baby cribs, and a sense of renewed optimism. Next to the arch, Evan stood in a navy blue suit, adjusting his cufflinks as he smiled nervously at the flower girl weaving her way through the rows of chairs. "Lily, darling, you're not quite ready to run just yet," he laughed softly. The young girl twirled in her fluffy pink princess dress and dashed right into his embrace. "But I missed you." He lifted her gently, pressed a kiss to her forehead and murmured, "You'll see me in just a moment when we walk Mommy down the aisle. All right, but I still get to toss flowers, correct?" she inquired, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Every single one," Evan smiled broadly. The music commenced, a gentle instrumental performed by one of the clinic's patients on a weathered violin. Lily danced ahead, scattering petals, then spun around and paused at the front as June came into sight. All eyes were drawn, and silence enveloped the room. Evan's breath hitched at the sight of her. She moved with deliberate grace, each step a cautious embrace of a reality that had previously existed only in her imagination. Her gaze remained fixed on him. As she approached the arch, he offered his hand. She accepted it, the officiant started, yet June hardly registered the words. She sensed the delicate touch of Lily's small fingers intertwined with hers on one side, while Evan's firm hold anchored her on the other. The moment was perfect. "Are you ready to share your vows?" the officiant inquired. June nodded, her voice soft yet distinct. "Evan, when you proposed to me, it wasn't out of love. It was meant to rescue me, but you didn't merely rescue me. You restored my very essence. You provided Lily with hope. You turned despair into a sanctuary. From a promise I never anticipated, you brought forth something remarkable." Her eyes glimmered, connecting one wandering spirit to the next. "I appreciate your unwavering support." Evan blinked quickly, then grasped her hands in his. "In June, I believed I understood the essence of strength. I witnessed it in operations, in achievements, in statistics, but then I encountered you, and you revealed that true resilience is rising when all you desire is to fade away. It's embracing love when your past has been filled with fear." He halted, his breath heavy. "You revealed the true essence of family, which transcends blood ties, riches, or surnames. It's all about the cause you stand for, and I will stand by you every single day for the entirety of my life." The officiant beamed with warmth. "With the authority granted to me, I hereby declare you husband and wife once more, but this time it is genuine." Cheers filled the air. Lily clapped her hands with unrestrained enthusiasm, while Evan leaned closer, kissing June with a tenderness that conveyed all the truths she had ever sought. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the guests twirled on the lawn, June lingered at the garden's edge, observing Lily darting after fireflies. Evan approached her from behind, encircling her waist with his arms. "Feeling weary yet, Mrs. Hale?" She reclined against him, far from being close. He pressed his lips gently against the crown of her head. June gazed over the garden, taking in the women with whom she had once shared tears, the children frolicking near the tables, and the sturdy walls of the center they had created together. Her voice quivered softly as she murmured, "From a single unforeseen question, you bestowed upon me an entirely new existence." Evan gently turned her to face him, his gaze filled with warmth. "For family is not defined by our origins, but by the bonds we choose to nurture and remain for." They lingered in that moment as the initial stars began to twinkle in the night sky, their hands clasped together, with the sound of their daughter's laughter echoing in the distance. Not a fantasy, something deeper, something authentic, everlasting. We appreciate you joining us on this remarkable journey filled with strength, renewal, and unwavering affection. The girl without a home, nestled within the millionaire's heart, serves as a poignant reminder that no history is beyond repair, and no spirit is too adrift to rediscover its sanctuary. From a frigid night beneath a bridge to a vibrant garden brimming with joy, June, Evan, and young Lily demonstrated that family transcends mere blood ties. It is crafted through sacrifice, deliberate choices, and the bravery to love even in the toughest moments. If this narrative resonated with you, ignited your spirit, or brought to mind the elegance of new beginnings, we welcome you to join our expanding community. Remember to like, share, and, above all, subscribe to soul-stirring stories. In this space, each narrative transcends mere language. It serves as a gateway to restoration, optimism, and the essence of being human. Join us at Soul Stirring Stories, where each narrative resonates deeply within your soul.